Hi everyone! In this lesson we are going to look first of all at how to clone an object. In this scene I've prepared a simple standard object, the teapot, which you'll find the list of basic objects seen in lesson 2. I've already given the object a name, so now we're ready to move on the initial phase. So let's select the object, then right click with the mouse to open the quad menu, then click on clone. The little window that opens will allow us to select a copy mode and give the copy a new name. For now, select the copy mode and click on OK. Shortly, I will explain the differences. The object now appears to be copied, but it's overlaying the previous one. To get a sense of what happened, let's take the Move tool and move the selected object. And here's our nice copy. We can obviously speed up the process. If we select the object again, we can press the keys Ctrl V to paste a new object of the object directly into the scene. You know the rest. Max also allows us to create copies of a series of objects, distancing each copy evenly. To do this, we select the object and make sure that the Move command is active. Having done that, we hold down the Shift key and selecting one of the available axes, we drag it and see that Max has created a clone from the parent object. As soon as we finish dragging the object, distancing from the parent object, the usual dialog box for copying objects will open, but with one more particularity. Here you can set how many copies of the object will be spread out in the chosen direction and at the distance established by dragging. It stands to the reason then that it's also possible to create a long set of identical objects spread out in all directions and at the same distance, as you can see in the demonstration. As we said a short while ago, Max offers various cloning methods. So far, we've seen the copy method. Now let's try to see what happens if we use the instant method and look how they are different. The copy method simply creates copies of the object with no relation to one another. They are completely separate units that simply look the same. Instant, on the other hand, creates copies of the object which have a two-way relationship between them. If I make any changes to the parent object, those changes will be echoed in the children and vice versa. As you can see in this short demonstration, if we increase or decrease the size of any object, the others are also changed accordingly. And the same goes for all changes made. This relationship can obviously be broken for one or more instances of the object. To do this, simply select the objects you intend to separate from the parent, go to the Modify tab and click on the button shown. From now on, any changes made to the other objects will not affect the separated object, and vice versa. Finally, there's the third cloning method, reference. It's very similar to the instant method, but it has certain particularities that we won't look into at this course. So let's skip the explanation about this kind of cloning. Now, cloning can not only be carried out through repositioning, but also through rotation. To do this, let's bring our attention back to one of the last topics covered last lesson, about the possibility of moving an object away from its pivot point and using the pivot point of the object as a linchpin for external rotation. The cloning method is the same as the one used in the Move command. We select the Rotate tool, hold down Shift and drag the axis of rotation until the cloned object reaches the desired angle. We'll use the instance cloning method in this case and set the number of copies to 3 so that we have an object every 90 degrees. Okay, I'll quickly bring everything back to how it was before using Ctrl-V. So, to finish off this first part of the lesson on cloning, let's look how to reflect an object. To reflect or flip an object, we are going to learn about a new tool that you can find on the toolbar, the mirror. Please note, once the dialog box opens, you can no longer carry out move, zoom or view rotation operation. So make sure you have a free view before opening the tool. This dialog box is easy to interpret. First of all, the bottom part allows us to decide whether we want to mirror the object without cloning it, or whether we want to create a copy of the object being mirrored, leaving the original one in its place, obviously allowing us to choose. The upper part of the window allows us to decide whether to flip the object on just one axis or whether to flip it on 2 axes at the same time. Finally, we can decide whether to offset the object along the selected axis or axis, so let's take a more detailed look. For example, we select copy and select the y-axis for the flip. As you can see, the flip pivot is the y-axis. Now let's select the x-axis and apply an offset so that we can see the flipped object. We don't notice any difference in this case because the two sides parts of the T-points are symmetrical. But if we select the y-axis, the concept is clearer. Now let's try the z-axis. With the double axis, the flip and offset occur on 2 pivots at the same time. Try to test the various effects produced by each of the options available. I'm now going to continue the lesson by showing you one of the most useful tools for creating precise objects, snaps. In a way, the snaps correspond then to the magnetic guides in Photoshop, obviously with more sophisticated characteristics. However, there are many types of snaps, including some with rather complex properties. But for this lesson, we will limit ourselves to getting to know the 2-dimensional movement snap and the angled snap. To activate the 2D snap, click on the icon highlighted. Be aware that instead of the 2.0 magnet button, you could find a button labeled 2.5 or 3.0. As I mentioned, Max has many kinds of snaps, but what we need is the 2.0, so click on the button and hold it down. A drop-down menu will open which will allow you to select the 2.0 snap. Right-click the icon using the mouse to open a window that will allow you to choose which snap locations to use to anchor your objects. We'll select the vertex and grid points, for example, so that we can understand what this actually involves. Click the window and let's try to create an object in the top view. By activating grid points, we're actually just telling Max to use the points of the grid as magnetic guides to which we can hook the vertices of an object we create. This applies for all 3 orthographic views. So if we create a box, for example, when we raise its volume, the cursor is still the subject to the attraction produced by the snap. It's the exact same matter if we decide to create a line instead of a solid. As you can see, this tool is very useful for making precise creations. But grid points are just the first of the snap locations available in Max. There are also many others, which I'll leave for you to experience with. Instead, now let's try to use vertex as a snap location. In this case, the vertices of even objects in the scene are actually magnetized. Notice, however, that all the objects created are stuck onto the XY plane. That's because we are still using a two-dimensional snap. Remember to always deactivate the snap if you wish to move the objects freely. The strength of this tool is also the fact that we can select more than one snap location and have them interact. And this, for example, allows us to create and align objects very precisely and easily. So let's try to create two walls and look how to align them using snapping. We'll put two boxes into the scene without any snapping activated, just placing them in random positions. Now we activate the snap, select the object, and then the move command. Now you can see that the snapping allows us to drag the object, grabbing them by the vertices, and with the grid points also activated, it's really simple to align the two walls. To finish off this lesson, let's talk about the angle snap, which is great for rotation objects precisely. We activate the snap by clicking on the icon highlighted and right-click with the mouse to open the options window. Let's just concentrate on the angle option. This value allows to set how many degrees the object will rotate at the one time. I've always set it to 5 degrees. This time let's put 10. Then create a box to see how it works. Select rotate and notice the yellow sequence in brackets. The object rotates around the axis 10 degrees at a time, and each axis has its own meter.